President Biden, meanwhile, making a bizarre claim ahead of Rosh Hashanah and adding to a growing list of such claims about his background. The headline of the New York Post reading, Biden claims to a group of rabbis that he was raised in synagogues in my state. But that doesn't track with the president's previous claims. Kayleigh McEnany is an outnumbered co-host, and she joins us now. Here's just some of what he said, including where he lived growing up. Listen.
When I was a teenager in Delaware, for real, I got involved in the civil rights movement. I got my education, for real, in the black church. And that's not hyperbole, it's a fact.
I was sort of raised in the Puerto Rican community at home.
Okay, teenager in Delaware, civil rights movement, got his education in a black church, raised in the Puerto Rican community at home. So what is happening with this string of bizarre claims?
President Biden tries to be all things to all people and insert himself into everyone's story, much to his own peril. I mean, the Puerto Rican community, that I believe there were about 2,200 Puerto Ricans in Delaware at the time, so that's just false. He said you might as well add ski to his last name. He wants to be Bidensky because he said he was raised among the Polish community. It gets worse. He took on the gang leader Corn Pop. The list goes on. And then the bizarre claim of being arrested and then marching in the civil rights movement. But what is interesting to me, we often think and attribute this to Biden's age. He's been doing this for a long time. I found a New York Times article that in 1987, he made the claim about marching in the civil rights movement. And the New York Times said members of his staff warned him more than once, do not keep saying this. It's not true. This was back in 1987, a year before I was born. But he keeps saying it. You'd think after decades he would get the hint. Your staff has told you, cut it out, Mr. President. This is just deception.
Wow. Well, he doesn't appear to be listening. Meanwhile, I want to ask you about the impact abortion is going to have on the upcoming election and where Democrats particularly stand on this. You tweeted out that Gavin Newsom's refusing to say there should be any limit on abortion whatsoever. Here is what he said in a recent interview Monday night. Listen.
What is the policy? What should it be?
The policy, it's not up to Donald Trump or me. It's up to you, to women that have to bear that responsibility uniquely and distinctively. And the reality is it's a canard. It's a political frame. It's total BS.
Okay, that's Gavin Newsom. And now here's Kamala Harris, the current vice president, earlier today. Listen.
One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree the government should not be telling her what to do with her body. This is the reason to really take seriously elections, because what the Supreme Court took away, the United States Congress can put back in place.
So are Democrats failing to clearly state where they stand on this issue?
Yes, yes. And we always talk about abortion being an Achilles heel for Republicans. And look, Republicans have lost every single ballot initiative post-Roe. So it's an important point to make that this is a liability in some ways if you don't talk about it correctly. But we don't often talk about the other side. Just 22% say abortion should be legal in the third trimester. That's according to Gallup. 37% in the second trimester. So that's 13 weeks after. Democrats are refusing to name any line. So the Republican Party should start asking two really important questions. When does a baby feel pain? Should abortion be banned when a baby feels pain? And should a baby outside the womb who survives abortion be protected in the wake of 210 Democrats voting against that legislation in the House when McCarthy brought it forward?
Really interesting point. Interesting analysis. I heard you comment specifically on Republicans highlighting that issue of pain following a recent interview with Mike Pence.
Yes, and he's done a good job of reorienting the discussion. And finally, creating a pro-mother, pro-family agenda. The child tax credit just expired. Yeah. Will Republicans bring it back? How to make childcare more affordable, foster adoption, come up with a family pro-mom agenda, make that the tagline of the Republican Party, because it's not just protecting babies, it's supporting women.
Kayleigh McEnany on all that for us. Kayleigh, thank you so much for coming.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.